Hi there, I'm Melissa Nielsen.
And I'm Eric Nielsen.
We have come to you today to talk to you about something that I keep getting a lot of emails about these questions. So we're talking about pods today. What's a pod? How does it work? How is it different from a co-op? And the emails I'm getting are not from a lot of homeschooling families.
No.
Yes, homeschooling families are emailing me, but I'm getting it more from families that want to bring their children home and they don't know how in the heck they're going to do it.
Yes.
So first, if you don't know who we own Waldorf Essentials, which is a homeschool curriculum support and training company, and we focus on working with families that want to have an education centered around the Waldorf curriculum or the work of Rudolf Steiner. And we work independent from schools. We have been in business for 16 years. My goodness, a long time. And we have 5 children all over the spectrum as far as ages go. We have from 24 down to 10, 5 children total. And so we've been at this a while. We know a few things.
A few.
We've helped several families, like so many families, thousands of families over the last 16 years. But what I find interesting is this new idea. Seems like a new idea. It's really not a new idea. I went and helped a pod that formed in Northern California about 5 years or so ago.
Yeah.
And so that was when I really started seeing more of them pop up. But I think let's back up and talk about like why would you want to do this? We are seeing the world is kind of a crazy place right now. And I'm seeing people from all over the political spectrum, all over the medical spectrum, want a pod for different reasons.
Yeah.
And it's sort of this idea of like taking their control back. I think that, it's about the stewardship place. Eric and I talk a lot in our coaching about having stewardship over your children. And once you realize that that's been taken away from you,
yeah,
then you kind of have this oh crap moment and you're trying to figure out how to get it all back. and school tends to sort of be that last holdout because, often mom and dad are working or it's just not something that they ever thought about.
Yeah.
And so we want to talk to you today a little bit about sort of how do you sort of shift your mind, I guess. Shift your mind. And what would you say to a parent that, you talk to a lot of dads typically. So what would you say to a dad who's like, I'm not so sure about this?
Well, there's lots of things. I mean, one thing that a lot of people come up with is they say, I don't really like what's happening at the schools.
Mm-hmm.
I can't control what they're exposed to. There's the school system itself views my kid as a number.
Right. And so Eric used to be a newspaper reporter 1,000 years ago. And they were. I mean, kids have been... This is not a new thing. This idea that children are numbers is not a new thing.
No, the test scores and the property values were tied together.
It's so bonkers.
And so then there was pressure that put on the school districts that these kids were commodities. So they had to crank out to these tests and these different things. And so, and that was back then, but that's not any different today.
No, that was like 15, 16 years ago that you were in that job. But I think what's so interesting is we've seen a steady rise in homeschooling as we've been working for the last 16 years. And I know there's been a giant rise probably in the last 25 years from that. And we're just sort of on this last 2/3 tail of it. But what I think is interesting is how many parents still do not feel qualified to teach their children.
I mean, one thing I'd say is, just to sum up what the other thought was,
sure.
Basically, the school district or the school system is existing to serve itself, not your family or your kid.
Right. And I think that's a really harsh reality because most families, I went to public school as a child in elementary school, and then I went to private schools in high school, but you went to public school your entire life. So most families don't realize that the school isn't there to serve them. It's there to serve themselves. And that's not to say that that all the teachers are bad or that all schools are bad. We know many people that have some pretty amazing experiences, but I think sadly they're becoming fewer and fewer far between. And there's a lot of families that this is their last holdout. Like, how do I take control of this last space? So we've been putting our heads together for years and years about this topic, but it's really kind of come to a head right now. How can I have a job that I have to work 9 to 5, where both parents are working, and still accomplish this? And so we're just going to give you some tips that we think should at least start the conversation in your family if this is something that's important to you. First of all, if there's any way that a parent can stay at home, then I would consider that. If that's not the case, if there's one of you at least has to work full time, or both of you have to work at least time and a half, see what your schedule can allow. What can you do from home? Is there a way that you can sort of work with your boss, or work within your schedule? Can you work off hours? I think that we're seeing that a lot of families that think, they may have a traditional Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job, but they're saying, hey boss, can I come in on Saturday instead of Wednesday?
Yeah.
Or can I rearrange my schedule so that I can do things from home rather than always being in the office? And so, I think that is a big thing. Also, I think entrepreneurship is really a big deal. If you've been thinking about starting a business, now's a good time. That's totally a good time. We talked about flexibility with bosses. If there's a way that you can step away from, if one of you can step away from the job, then it's a good idea. And it's not always the mom. I mean, it is traditionally the mom.
Yeah. But we've
But
seen
not
dads
always.
do that too. So.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, that's one thing that you do within our business. Eric supports the dads. He supports the moms too, but Eric and I team teach. So, during the week, I teach 2 days, he teaches 1 day, and we only school our kids 3 days. The rest of the time we have educational fun. But within that, dads need support because it is a space that is often dominated by moms. And so we need more dads in that space. So don't always think that it has to be mom that takes that on, that often it is dad that takes it on. And we love to see that support within sort of families together. So once you've kind of figured out, like, yes, one of us can be at home, then it's the next space of like, how? So, you've got options. You can absolutely dive in and homeschool on your own, which we have been teaching homeschooling families for 16 years how to do that. But you can also dive into this idea of a pod. So a pod would be consisting of you and other families that have the same or similar values, and you come together to teach your children. So generally a pod would be all children of the same age or grade, and then maybe a cooperative or a co-op would be a group of pods together. And that's the way we see it and the way we've really worked with other families. But within that pod, sometimes people hire a teacher. They just go, hey, we don't want to do this. We just need families to sort of take their turn, sort of holding that space for children so the teacher is not there by themselves. Poor teacher.
Yeah.
But they don't want to do the teaching on their own. And sometimes they do want to do the teaching on their own. They're take turns. If Susie's mom is off on Monday and Johnny's dad is off on Tuesday and Jacob's dad is off on Wednesday and Elizabeth's mom is off on Thursday, then you've got, as long as you can coordinate it, you've got a day for each parent to really work with those children. And we work with parents to make sure y'all are coordinated, organized, planned out, on the same page. That's part of what we do when we work with pods, because when you're successful, then you have a great school year. It's so important.
Yep.
Let's see. We talked about this. A pod, we have these little notes here. A pod may have a teacher or not. If you have a teacher, we also often will work with that teacher. So say you've got a teacher, say you're, a Steiner-inspired, Waldorf-inspired family. You've got 5 other families that you want to pull into your pod. And within that, you decide you're going to pool your resources, pool your money, and hire a teacher. And with that, if you've been going to a Steiner school, you can take those funds, and 5 families together can easily make teacher salary, easily, and have money left over probably. So you would get the teacher together, and the teacher then works with us. We provide the curriculum, and the teacher can work with us. If you decide, hey, you don't want to do a teacher, you each want to take turns teaching, you also work with us. We teach you, we train you, we give you the support you need so that you can get through all of the pieces, so that you can know what you're doing, because this is something we're really good at. We've been doing it for a long time. We love supporting the Waldorf community. It's like super important to us. And, families are coming to this method of education all the time. And so with that, they need help and support. And I think often there's this idea, I can't do it as well as they do it at the school. Or, oh my gosh, we won't have the community. But if you gather a pod together, you will have a new community, a community that you have created of people that have like-minded values. And that is something that I know is really important to so many families, not just now, but always, to really, and again, it's just funny because it's on both sides of the political spectrum. All over, people are looking for spaces where they can feel comfortable, where they can feel held, where they don't feel like they continually have to explain themselves.
I mean, we get people sending us clips of parents and school boards fighting all the time.
Right.
Like, we see so many people like, hey, did you see this one? And
I know.
And people calling each other names.
And it's
the
so
school
crazy
board
because,
members
again, it's
calling people names, the teachers and
Yep.
the parents fighting. And it's like, well, rather than have that reality, just
create a new one.
Create a different one and
Totally.
let them do their thing and you go do your thing.
Right. And I again, I think it's so interesting to see like all spectrums. We also have another option for families. So maybe you really don't want to hire a teacher. Maybe you really don't want to do the homeschooling yourself. You want to send them to our virtual school. So we have a Waldorf-inspired virtual school. And the place that a pod would come together for this would be, the pod would then, the parents would take turns. Like one day all the kids are at Sally's house, and Sally's making sure they eat. Sally's making sure they do their online work. And then the kids are together in the afternoon, doing activities and having fun. And the next day, they're at Johnny's dad's house and they're doing the same thing. So there are many opportunities. And even if you didn't use our curriculum, we hope that this plants a seed so that you can have, choices, options. It's not just about what Eric, he calls it the man all the time. It's not just what the man says. You get to be in charge of the man because you're the one that pays the taxes. You're the one that pays the bills and that. You get to choose. And so often we are like brainwashed into thinking we don't have any choices.
Yeah, we have
convince
to
ourselves
told.
that we don't have choices. And we do. We have so many awesome choices. And we would like to help you with those choices. So drop us a note. Drop us a DM if you're watching us on Instagram. Drop us a message if you're watching us on YouTube. We'd love to help you on this journey. And we thank you for joining us and giving us your time today.
Thank you.